Hello and welcome to another episode of the DVD Graveyard. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at The Lamp from 1987, also known as The Outing, directed by Thomas Daly. Now, this is probably not only one of my favorite, but probably one of the only Killer Genie movies now that I think about it, because the only other one that really kind of comes to mind is Wishmaster. I mean, there may be more, I don't know, but you know, if anybody ever were to be like, what's the best Killer Genie movie, you know, it's either going to be Wishmaster or The Lamp. Like I said, those are really the only two that come to mind. So this movie is one that I just kind of found out about, you know, a few years ago, and I picked up this Scream Factory all-night horror marathon. It's one of those movie, you know, those DVDs that's got 4 films on it. This one in particular has What's the Matter with Helen, The Vagrant, The Godsend, and The Outing. Now, they're all, you know, pretty decent movies for the most part, but The Outing is actually the reason I bought this DVD, because, you know, I was looking at it, and I was kind of reading over the plot synopsis on the back of some of them, and, you know, I read that it was about a killer genie, and I was like, oh, that's badass, that sounds awesome, like, that sounds like, you know, right up my alley. I've got to check this out. So I picked it up, you know, took it home, watched it, and I was really pleased with it. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was very cheesy, very kind of goofy, very late 80s, you know, most definitely. You know, not exactly what I expected, but there was still something about it that I really liked, and it was definitely one of the ones that's kind of stuck out to me on this DVD. I'm definitely due for a rewatch on some of the other ones. I know The Vagrant with Bill Paxton was pretty good, you know, from what I remember off the top of my head. But it wasn't until many years later, you know, of course, it has the title on the back of this. It says, you know, The Outing, aka The Lamp. And it wasn't until much later, whenever I actually got this Vinegar Syndrome release of The Lamp, that I realized that was not the complete version, the Outing cut, I guess you will. So you know, that's one thing I want to say is there are 2 cuts of this movie. There is the Outing cut, and then there is the Lamp cut. Now, they're only about 2 minutes different, and I'll talk about some of the differences kind of whenever I get to them. I'm not going to go super deep on this one by any means, but, you know, if you get the chance, I highly recommend watching the Lamp cut. I think it's just a better kind of movie, like, you know, it flows a little bit better. The first thing I can say about it that I prefer is the fact that they gave it the original title, The Lamp, because whoever's idea it was to change the title to The Outing, I don't know what the reason behind that was. I don't know whose idea that was, but I think that's really silly because, you know, you hear The Lamp and you read that the film is about a killer genie, and that just makes sense. I mean, the movie is about this damn lamp. I mean, that's really kind of what this movie revolves around. You know, not The Outing. I mean, that's just, I don't understand why they changed the title. I don't get that, because again, the lamp really fits this film so much better. So that was kind of the first thing that I really liked, is that they gave it the original title. And another thing was, they, you know, the one of the first things I'll mention is that I love that they used the original score for the film. Like, so if you watch the Outing cut, the score in it is, it's not terrible, but the score in The Lamp is so much better. It's so much more ethereal sounding. It really fits the tone of the movie so much better. So, you know, that's kind of a thing that I'll go ahead and kind of get out of the way. So before I get too far into the review, I am going to go ahead and read the back of this plot synopsis on this Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, which, like I said, I highly recommend if you're a physical media person, or if you get the chance and you want to watch this movie, this is the version to watch. There is a little disclaimer at the beginning of this Blu-ray that says, you know, some of the elements were lost, and most of it was restored from the 35 millimeter negative, and some of it still doesn't look great. It looks kind of blurry because they were only able to restore it so much, but this is still definitely the version to watch. After a group of thieves decide to ransack the home of a strange old gypsy woman, murdering her in the process, they unwittingly free a vengeful genie named Jinn, who has been held captive for centuries in an ancient oil lamp. Soon after, the lamp is acquired by a local museum, but as Alex Wallace, daughter of the museum's curator, decides to sneak a group of her friends into the museum after hours for a night of partying, she doesn't realize that the Jinn is looking for a new keeper, and that Alex is the perfect vessel to carry out the genie's diabolical actions. So that really kind of sums up the movie pretty well, to be honest with you. So when this movie starts out, this is another big thing that, you know, I noticed immediately between the differences of these two films is the opening in the lamp cut. It adds a whole nother scene to it. So with the lamp cut, basically where we start out is we kind of see this old ship in the Galveston, the like a bay in Galveston, Texas, which this whole film I believe was actually shot on location in Galveston, Texas, where this lamp, this genie lamp is stolen from this woman who ends up dying. And the person who steals the lamp is killed mysteriously, and we kind of get a little gore splash, and then we kind of see some hands come in off screen that takes the lamp, and this little bracelet that kind of goes with the lamp kind of takes those, and we don't see who it is, but somebody grabs them off screen, and that's how this version opens up, and then we kind of get to the next scene, which this is where the outing cut immediately starts. Like we get a little opening credits kind of sequence, and then we start out right here at this moment, which this is actually my favorite part of the movie, to be completely honest with you, is this whole section here. There is basically a group of 3 people who break into this old woman's house, and they're ransacking it because they're going to rob her, and they're looking through all of her stuff and trying to find what all the riches and things that she has, and that's when they find the lamp and this bracelet, and so they end up killing the old woman. And when they kill the old woman, this bracelet falls off of her. The genie is set free from the lamp and kind of possesses the old woman's dead body. One of the men is killed, and then the other 2 are killed shortly after. So this is kind of my favorite part of the movie. Like I said, I really wish that this had been the entire movie, was like a group of people, home invaders breaking into this person's house, or even like the group of teenagers not breaks into this house, but kind of comes to stay the night in this house, and it's full of all these old artifacts, and one of the things in there is the lamp. I think that would have been a much cooler scenario, because this is such a creepy old but yet beautiful looking house. I think that would have just been a little bit more interesting for me personally. So like I said, this is kind of my favorite part of the film, is this kind of whole sequence right here, the home invasion sequence. So after that, we see the police come in, they kind of clean up the crime scene, they find the lamp and the bracelet, and they pack it up, and it is shipped off to this museum. And this is when the real movie starts. Yeah, so like this really kind of feels like 3 movies put together, to be honest with you. I feel like there's 3 kind of distinct, separate scenarios that are happening here. And it's even more jarring, like if you watch the outing cut, because again, it doesn't have that opening sequence with the lamp being stolen off of the ship. We just get the home invasion, and then we go straight to the lamp, which I don't know, maybe that actually makes it make more sense. I don't know, but I like to have that little intro, in 1893. So the lamp ends up at this museum. That's when we meet Dr. Wallace, who's played by James Houston. I'm sorry I didn't go over the cast, I just realized, but the cast is fairly small. I mean, we don't have anybody just kind of, anyway. James Houston plays Dr. Wallace, and that's when we meet his daughter, Alex Wallace, and she kind of comes in and she's looking at all the stuff, and this is where the lamp ends up, and they're kind of looking at the lamp, and they're going over it and kind of talking about it, and trying to kind of figure some stuff out about it, and Alex kind of inevitably puts on the bracelet because she thinks it looks nice, and then she can't get it off. It's stuck on her. And so she kind of argues with her dad. She's talking about this damn museum because she doesn't have a father because he's always at work at this museum. And her father has a pretty valid point. He tells her, he's like, this museum is what puts a roof over your head and buys you those designer jeans and stuff. And so I mean, kids, what are you gonna do? And then she actually ends up saying like, I sometimes I wish you were dead. And you're like, oh my God, Alex, like chill the fuck out, man. Like he's got to work. Like you're gonna be there someday too. Chill out. So at this point, we just get some more kind of character moments. This is kind of really where the movie, like I said, really truly starts. I mean, you get kind of all the setup and the opening stuff, like with the kids at school, kind of bullshitting, just hanging out, doing things around the school. We kind of see the school bullies that are there getting in trouble, and they get in a fight, and there's just, like I said, the movie really kind of slows down at this point because it's giving you all of the setup that you would originally start the film with, whereas this film starts out really fast-paced, telling us 2 completely different kind of stories, and then picks up. So again, it's kind of jarring, but at the same time, I don't really mind it because it just kind of, I don't know, it's just different, and it makes the film feel just a little bit different. So I don't mind it too much, but just as a heads up, it does kind of slow down at this point. So what this all kind of boils down to is the class is going to go on this field trip to the museum where Alex's father works. And they go to the museum, and when they get in there, they're all kind of looking around, and Alex's little kind of circle of friends is like, hey, we should stay the night in the museum. How cool would that be? And she's like, no, 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 we don't need to do that. We shouldn't do that. And she's like, my father would never go for it. And she ends up going into like this room, and she kind of gets possessed by the genie, more or less. And then she comes out and she's like, actually, yeah, let's do it. Let's stay the night at the museum. My dad will be fine with it. Blah. And nobody really questions her sudden change of heart. So they kind of go through with this plan. And she ends up telling like the teacher that brought them there that she's going to go home with her dad. And she tells her dad that she's going to go home with her boyfriend, played by Scott Bankston. His name's Ted in this movie. So, which kind of comes into play later, and then of course the bullies kind of overhear them, and they're like, we're gonna crash their party. We'll stay in the museum too overnight. So, kind of after everything slows down and everybody leaves, they end up, they get locked in this museum more or less. And that's kind of really where stuff kind of starts to pick up. So like the security guards are killed, like and that's one thing. Let me note that too while I'm on the topic of the kills. The kills are pretty creative in this movie. Not as creative as you would expect for a movie about a killer genie who can do kind of whatever, turn invisible, levitate things, throw things, whatever. But we do get some pretty unique kills in this. I'll say like. The spear kill is pretty basic. The guard is just kind of killed with a flying spear. One of the bullies, ends up getting killed with this like helmet that they're wearing. They're kind of walking around scaring all the other the teenagers, and he's got this kind of helmet on, and it gets tightened around his head, and his head is twisted around. Alex's boyfriend, Scott Bankston's character, he's attacked by this mummy. This mummy comes to life and kills him, which is really cool. And that's one thing in this version, in the lamp cut, that I really like is we actually get to see a lot more of the gore that was kind of cut out. Not like a whole lot. This movie is not just overly gory, but we get to see more of it than what we get to see in the outing cut, which I appreciate. I always like to see a little bit more gore, and like there's the scene, of course, where the girl is kind of killed. She's taking a bath, and all these snakes come to life, out of this wet specimen room, and they come to life, and they attack her in the bathtub, and she dies, from snake bites. And another kid, he's bitten by one of the snakes, and he dies. So like, again, not as crazy as you would think this movie goes, or as crazy as it could go, but they're still fun. And again, they're playing around with the whole genie thing. And this movie, again, it kind of feels like a slasher film with a genie, more or less. I mean, that's kind of how it plays out as a late 80s slasher film. And I don't mean that in a negative connotation. I mean that really. That's really kind of what this movie feels like. It feels like a late 80s slasher movie, but with a little bit of a twist on it, if you will. So that's really kind of, that's really what goes on. I mean, again, the shit's kind of hitting the fan around this museum, and people are being killed. And that's whenever Alex's father realizes that she hasn't heard from her. She hasn't been able to get a hold of her on the phone. Her and her dad and the teacher, who they're actually engaged at this point, they realize that they got conflicting stories from Alex, and they don't really know where she's at, so they just kind of come to the conclusion that she's still at the museum. So they end up going to the museum, once again the kind of shit hits the fan, and the Alex is kind of left there alone, and all these people are dead, all the security guards, everything like that. And they go in there, and that is when we get the reveal of the djinn, and it looks so cool. The design of this genie is so cool. It's like this animatronic, this big puppet basically, and it's so badass. I love just the way it looks. It's got the smoke kind of all around it, and it's just this huge animatronic. And it kind of basically tells Alex that she has the bracelet, so she is now the keeper of the genie, of the lamp, which is kind of hard to understand because his voice is like very, very garbled, so it's kind of hard to understand what he says, but that's more or less kind of what he tells her. She's the keeper of the lamp. And so, a chase kind of ensues, and he tells her that her wish is his command, because, earlier in the film, she said she wished her father was dead, so, of course, we knew that would come back in a movie about a genie. So there's a chase kind of that goes around the museum. The father is killed. I don't remember how he dies exactly off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the father is killed, leaving just the teacher and Alex. And they find out that the only way to destroy the genie is to destroy the lamp. So she basically kind of takes the lamp and she burns it. She throws it into a furnace or a fireplace or something like that, and burns the lamp and does away with the genie, kills the genie. The bracelet falls off of her. The genie kind of leaves her soul, I guess you could say, which, well, it really didn't play as big of a factor in the movie as you would think. And basically the cops come, everything's okay. They're carted away. We freeze frame on Alex, and we roll credits. And that is The Lamp from 1987. So this movie is not going to be for everyone. Like, I could see, a lot of people not really caring for this movie, to be completely honest with you. But I really like it. Like, it's really fun. It's a good late night kind of watch. Like, if you just want to watch, a cheesy kind of late 80s movie, which, that's what we like here, at the DVD Graveyard. We like some cheesy B horror films. That's kind of our bread and butter here. But I really like this movie a lot. Like, it's very fun. It's a very entertaining watch, and again, it's more or less a late 80s slasher film that's got that late 80s feel to it. But it's about, a little bit of a twist, has that killer genie aspect to it. So again, if you get the chance, like I said, definitely watch the Lamp cut. That is the most complete version of this film. That is the one that I highly recommend if you get the chance. Like I said, definitely pick up this Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray. It's great. I love the music in this version. You get a little bit more of the kills. You just get a lot more kind of going on in this movie, in this version of it, versus the outing cut. That is definitely the way to watch it, I think. Personally, 100%. It looks much better too. I mean, I'm not somebody who harps on video quality too much, but it looks a lot better than the outing cut that I have on this Scream Factory DVD. And the movie, another thing I failed to mention is that I did speak about this movie one other time on my top 10 horror movie posters, because I absolutely love the poster of this film. With the lamp with all the kind of smoke coming out that's in all the characters' faces, and we see the Jin's face in there. It's super cool. I love the poster of this film. And like I said, it's definitely not one of my favorites of all time. And like I said, it's not going to be one that just everybody is going to love. But I definitely recommend at least giving it a chance. Definitely check it out if you can. If you find it to rent somewhere, or if you find it really cheap to buy, this is one that I think is going to go under a lot of people's radar. But I think if once depending on your tastes and stuff, I think you might enjoy this movie, because like I said, I really really enjoyed it. So anyway, like I said, that was The Lamp from 1987, directed by Thomas Daly. I hope everyone enjoyed this review. I hope everyone gets the chance to check this movie out at some point. As always, stay tuned for the next episode. Have a great rest of your night, and goodbye.